Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we've got a truly fascinating, deeply psychological, and frankly, pretty chilling journey ahead of us. We're going to clinically deconstruct a Malayalam thriller called The Architect of Broken Bonds. But we're not just going to recap the plot. No, we're going to strip this narrative right down to its studs to see exactly how a master manipulator operates. By the end of this explainer, you're going to see exactly how invisible strings are pulled to completely tear a life apart. Let's dive in.
So what does it actually take to completely dismantle a family from the inside out? It's a dark, unsettling question, isn't it? If we approach this with an analytical, almost true crime-style lens, we learn a terrifying truth. Total destruction rarely arrives with a sudden, loud crash. Instead, it creeps in quietly. It wears the mask of a friend. Let's break down exactly how this happens, step by step.
The vulnerable foundation, pre-existing cracks.
You see, every structural collapse starts with cracks that were already there, and this story is absolutely no different. Before our antagonist even makes a single major move, we really need to understand the profound vulnerabilities that are already present in Arjun and Devika's marriage. A predator doesn't create the weakness, right? They simply look for the fractures that already exist. Now think about the number 2500. In an early, beautifully understated scene, the family is having dinner during a power cut. Their young son, Advait, mentions he needs a costume for school. Devika asks the price, and Arjun softly replies, 2,500. It's just 2,500 rupees. But in that dimly lit room, that small number exposes a massive, suffocating financial and emotional strain between the couple. Devika sighs, asks how they're going to manage it, and the silence that follows is just deafening.
And what's truly heartbreaking here is who notices it first. The youngest, most innocent member of the household is the one who actually verbalizes the danger. While eating ice cream on the beach, young Advait casually mentions to his dad, "Amma doesn't smile much anymore." Kids are incredibly perceptive barometers for household tension, aren't they? Advait senses that silent, heavy atmosphere, proving to us that the foundation of this family is already deeply fractured, totally exhausted, and perfectly ripe for exploitation.
Phase 1. Sowing seeds of doubt.
Enter Raghu, our antagonist. Now, a brilliant manipulator doesn't just start by attacking. They start by observing. Raghu identifies Devika's deep exhaustion and just steps right into her life, beginning this highly calculated, millimeter-by-millimeter emotional infiltration. We see this perfectly executed in a hospital parking lot at night. Devika's coming off a grueling shift, and Raghu is just there, offering a cup of tea. He looks at her and says, "If eyes are tired, people wear makeup. If the mind is tired, silence." Notice exactly what he's doing here. He's framing himself as a highly empathetic, observant outsider. He's validating her unseen exhaustion, making her feel uniquely understood by him in a way her own husband currently doesn't.
Here's where it gets really insidious. Raghu skillfully weaponizes Arjun's natural coping mechanism right against him. When Devika admits she feels like she's the only one taking their life seriously, Raghu replies, "Men often turn pressure into a joke." Boom! Instantly, Raghu has taken Arjun's desperate attempts to smile through his stress, to try and keep the family positive, and completely reframe them in Devika's mind as signs of immaturity and neglect. He literally turns the husband's shield into a weapon that hurts the wife.
Phase 2. Weaponizing truth. Once that seed of doubt is planted with the wife, Raghu shifts gears. We move to the dim, moody lighting of a bar, where Raghu sits down with the husband, Arjun, using a completely different psychological tactic, tailored specifically to him. We see this fatal contrast between the two men. Arjun naively confesses that he's told Devika everything about his past, his drinking, his failures, because he genuinely believes marriage must be built on truth. But Raghu coldly counters, "Truth is dangerous. People want security." Raghu knows that pure, unfiltered truth in an already stressed marriage is basically a ticking time bomb.
Then, under the guise of being just a friendly, philosophical drinking buddy, Raghu gets Arjun to confess all of his past failures. Raghu literally tells Arjun his entire playbook right to his face, saying, "People are predictable, Arjun. If you understand their fear, you can control them." And Arjun just laughs it off. He thinks it's just late-night bar talk. He doesn't realize he just handed Raghu the exact inventory of insecurities and fears needed to control him completely.
Phase 3. Systemic isolation. Because look, with the psychological groundwork laid with both the husband and the wife individually, a true devastating takedown requires cutting off all of the victim's external support systems. They need to have nowhere else to turn. Effective manipulation doesn't just happen in quiet, whispered moments between a couple, it builds systematically out in the real world.
Raghu isn't just saying toxic things anymore, he is actively dismantling Arjun's financial and familial safety nets. He's moving chess pieces across the board, winning over the extended family, pushing terrible financial advice, and perfectly setting the stage for legal ruin.
We really see this emotional isolation peak during Devika's late-night breakdown. She's crying alone in her room. And who is on the phone? Raghu. When Devika weakly tries to defend her husband by saying, "He tries," Raghu smoothly replies, "Trying and protecting are different." It is such a devastatingly subtle invalidation. He takes Arjun's genuine hard-working effort and turns it into a fundamental character flaw, making Devika feel entirely unprotected by her own husband.
But Raghu doesn't stop there. Next, he targets the father-in-law, Madhavan. Over a polite cup of tea, Madhavan mentions that Arjun is a decent boy. Raghu coldly calculates his response and says, "Weak husbands are often good people, but families suffer." Wow, he equates Arjun's fundamental decency with a dangerous weakness and a total lack of leadership. He systematically poisons the father-in-law's perception, successfully cutting off yet another vital lifeline for the couple.
Things escalate so fast in the real world from here. Raghu pushes Arjun to sell his father's property under the guise of taking a risk for growth. He orchestrates maximum toxicity, which leads directly to a humiliating scene at the family court. And there's Raghu playing the calm, collected savior while a completely shattered Arjun falls apart in public. All the while, Raghu has slowly but surely become a constant, undeniable physical presence in Devika and Advait's home.
The reveal, the invisible architect. So we've reached the climax, that pre-interval sequence of the script where this dense, invisible web that Raghu has spent months spinning is finally exposed to the victim. It's that horrifying moment the prey realizes they're caught in a trap, and the realization actually begins with the chilling innocence of a child. During a quiet car ride, young Advait asks from the back seat, "Why does Uncle Raghu always come to our house?" Even Devika has no comfortable answer for this. It highlights a terrifying spatial victory. Raghu hasn't just invaded their minds. He has successfully usurped Arjun's physical place as the protector and presence in that household.
The absolute cruelty of this reaches its peak when an utterly broken Arjun, sobbing in an empty room while watching old home videos of his son, gets a phone call from Raghu. Arjun demands his family back, but Raghu responds with this cold, terrifying piece of logic. "You want peace, Arjun. Sometimes that's not the same thing as having your family." Raghu twists the knife by perfectly separating the concept of inner peace from the concept of a loving family, leaving Arjun completely hollowed out. And then, the true, horrifying scale of the architecture drops in a sequence of rapid flash cuts in the pouring rain. First up, his lawyer, the very one advising him through the separation, is connected to Raghu.
The realization hits harder and faster. The marriage counselor that Devika had been seeing, the one guiding her emotional state during the hardest time of her life, was directly referred by Raghu.
The property broker who aggressively pushed the highly risky sale of his father's property, completely plunging them into financial instability. Yep, just another one of Raghu's contacts. And finally, even the police officer. Every single professional, every supposedly neutral third party involved in their ruin was a carefully planted piece on Raghu's chessboard. The entire collapse wasn't a tragic coincidence. It was a highly orchestrated, absolute takedown.
As all these memories crash together, the advice, the signatures, the arguments, the family dinners, Arjun lets out this final horrified whisper. He was everywhere. It perfectly solidifies the absolute terrifying success of Raghu's manipulation. Arjun wasn't fighting his wife or his circumstances. He was fighting a ghost who controlled the entire environment.
This script is literally a masterclass in psychological deconstruction. It shows us exactly how vulnerabilities are exploited by those we voluntarily let through the front door. So I want to leave you with this one thought to chew on. When your foundation is weak, who is actually building your future? Take a moment to reflect on the unseen forces and influences in your own life. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I really hope this explainer has given you a powerful new perspective on the mechanics of trust, vulnerability, and manipulation.